Speaking of seizing the opportunity that sits right in front of you, I still am checking to see if any trades have taken place. Nope. So nothing yet with the winter meetings, but we're going to keep an eye on that because you never know. I don't need another Eugenio Suarez trade to drop on me while we're doing this. So we'll keep an eye on that throughout the course of the show today. Because again, the winter meetings, you never know. I didn't expect what happened last night, Sunday evening, to take place, but it did. So we talked about it last week with the Mariners trading Eugenio Suarez to the Arizona Diamondbacks for relief pitcher Carlos Vargas and catcher Zeby Zavala. This week, Sunday evening, as I prepared for today's show, the Mariners swung a trade. I was actually taking a nap, and I woke up to all this news. I guess I should never take a nap. The Mariners have traded 3 players and some cash to the Atlanta Braves for 2 right-handed pitchers, largely unproven right-handed pitchers. So, as you can see, outfielder Jarred Kelenic, left-handed pitcher Marco Gonzales, who was the longest tenured Mariner before this trade, and first baseman Evan White have all been traded to the Atlanta Braves, an Atlanta Braves team that had a really strong regular season last year, but failed to do much in the playoffs this past season, and won a World Series not too long ago. Plus $4.5 million in cash considerations are all going to Atlanta in exchange for right-handed pitchers Jackson Kowar and right-handed pitcher Cole Phillips. There's some potential. We'll talk about the 2 pitchers that the Mariners are acquiring first. Kowar is 27. He appeared in 23 games, which is a career high for him with the Royals this season, all of them being in a relief capacity, posting a 2-0 record with 29 strikeouts over the course of 28 innings. He's appeared in parts of 3 seasons with Kansas City over the course of the 2021 to 2023 seasons. He was a first-round selection back in 2018. He was involved in a trade about a month ago between Atlanta and Kansas City on November 17th. So he's already been on the move once this offseason. He's got some good stuff. He just can't locate the zone very well. Kansas City tried to get that to work and they couldn't. Maybe it's up to the Mariners pitching factory to do something like that. But we'll just have to see there. And Cole Phillips is interesting. He's 20 years old. He was selected in the 2nd round of the 2022 drafts by Atlanta. He was ranked the Braves' 7th overall prospect by MLB.com and number 8 by Baseball America prior to this trade. He has not appeared in a pro game yet after he underwent Tommy John surgery back in April of 22 prior to the draft. So there's some questions there. He should be good to go by spring training, though. He's got a good fastball. It looks talented. It should be a good arm, but obviously it's not always a guarantee coming off of Tommy John surgery. And then on the Mariners side of things, I mean, Jarred Kelenic had started to put things together in the beginning of this past year, has shown flashes of what he can do for the Mariners, a great defensive player in the outfield for Seattle, obviously very intense. We all know the story of kicking the cooler and breaking his foot that gained him a lot of good and bad press. Marco Gonzales has been amazing for the Mariners in his time here out of Gonzaga, very involved in the community around the Seattle area, ranks 8th in Mariners history in wins, tied for 7th in starts, 10th in strikeouts, and 10th in quality starts. Just a big innings eater for Seattle. He did battle injuries this past year with a left forearm strain, being placed on the 15-day IL back in June on the 3rd before ultimately being transferred to the 60-day on July 26th and having to shut things down with a rare injury in his throwing arm. So that was really hard for Gonzales, and ultimately was part of the reason why we saw players like Bryce Miller and Brian Wu come up to make their MLB debuts. Evan White struggled. He won a Gold Glove at the first base position back in 2020, began the season this past year with AAA Tacoma, but only played in 2 games before being recalled and placed on the 60-day IL back on April 9th. Just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He did sign a 6-year deal with the Mariners back in 2019 before winning that Gold Glove. Showed power, just struck out a lot, and ultimately just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough in order to work on those issues. So, and then the fact that the Mariners sent $4.5 million over to the Braves points this being largely a payroll dump move. In a quote from the Mariners' official release regarding this news, Jerry Dipoto, president of baseball operations, said, as we continue to work through this offseason with the goal of improving our team in 2024 and beyond, we believe the addition of Cowher and Phillips, as well as the roster and payroll flexibility created tonight, will move us closer to that goal. So, I don't have a lot of answers for you with this one. I can give you ideas of what's potentially happening here. I mean, obviously, you talk about payroll flexibility. This largely, with everything considered, frees up about $20 to $24 million for the Mariners in payroll flexibility. That's not insignificant. I mean, if you look at the course of the offseason now, by not qualifying Teoscar Hernandez, by trading away Eugenio Suarez, and by now trading away Jarred Kelenic to get rid of the contracts of Evan White and Marco Gonzales, you dump a lot of strikeouts. There's a lot of strikeouts gone there. That is something that Dipoto talked about at the end of the season press conference just a few months ago, is getting rid of those strikeouts. But it feels very extreme that they're doing so. I get that Eugenio Suarez's bat speed was really going down, and offensively, it just didn't kind of seemed like his progression offensively was going off of a cliff. He still played all 162 games for you. He still played Gold Glove defense on the hot corner. It was a fan favorite, which doesn't tend to matter anymore. Jarred Kelenic, I mean, still a really young outfielder, has shown power, speed, great defensive play in the outfield. I mean, Marco, I can understand it. I don't know if there's going to be a place in the rotation for him next season. Evan White, I get as well. But shipping him off, Jarred Kelenic's now been involved in 2 trades over the course of his career where he was part of a trade that somehow involved a salary dump. So it's tough. It's tough. It's really tough because on one hand, you wonder, why is this happening? You wonder if there is a big deal that's going to come for the Mariners during these winter meetings, which hasn't happened yet. So thankfully that. Um, yeah, maybe you're still in the running for Shohei Ohtani, but I don't feel too comfortable believing in that. Just giving off of what we're seeing, the tea leaves we're reading, and what I'm being told, it just seems like the Mariners have seen the sort of contracts in the bidding war that's involved with Ohtani, and they don't. They showed up trying to build a Ferrari with funds for a Honda. It's not gonna work. I would be really glad to be proven wrong. It just doesn't seem like that's how things are going. I'm trying to stay as present in reality as I am my hopes and beliefs and what this team's offseason plan is. There are rumors that the team has been talking with the Rays about a deal involving third baseman Isaac Paredes and outfielder Randy Arozarena. I would be more than happy with a trade like that, depending on who's going to Tampa Bay, of course. But it doesn't seem great. It doesn't seem too great. The Mariners have taken a lot of impact players off of their roster at this current moment. They're alienating a good amount of the fan base at this current point in time. And I do realize, we are in the first 4 days of December. There's still a good amount of offseason to go. A lot of that can go into spring training. As, we talked about at the height of the show when I got that email. Anytime I see a notification, I worry that there's news. In spring training, when Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker got traded to the Mariners, it was during spring training. So, these things could happen anywhere from now to then. But, I think there's a lot of stress and anxiety waiting for that move to happen, waiting to see who's going to be on this roster, hoping and maybe you are, maybe you're not, praying that you're not putting a guy who's largely on paper at least doesn't have it at third base and Julio Urias. So it's tough. It's very tough. But the winter meetings are a big opportunity for Seattle to go in and bolster that lineup, add contact, not bring in guys with strikeouts. They've gotten rid of some of them, add some power, add some star power Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez outfield, whoever the third outfielder is, that's a ton of fun. I know those guys like each other, have been friends with each other. Paredes has some decent numbers at the third base position. He's 24 years old, so there's positivity in that. There are targets and free agency that I'd like to see in a Mariners uniform. How realistic that is, I don't know. Obviously, we would all love if Shohei Ohtani comes here. That would be the talk of the town. It would dominate the newscape around here. But trying, as I mentioned, to stay focused in reality while also balancing the hopes that I have for this offseason. So who knows? Maybe by the time that we see you next week, the Mariners have traded somebody else. Or for somebody. But as I mentioned, keeping an eye on that to see if anything is taking place. But otherwise, that is it for Mariners related news.